Hi, everybody, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host, Chris.
And I'm Linz.
Linz, we're still in the same room that we
We're
have
still
been.
in the same room and we've recorded. We're on the last episode of the batch. We just had a nice big chat off mic. We got a little bit serious
We did.
about the life issues. Very nice. Good to catch up in person.
Mm-hmm.
And then we thought, let's get this in the bag because the Northern Lights, I know everyone's sick of hearing about them, but they might be showing tonight. So we're going to have a little, maybe we'll see them.
Maybe.
I know they're not exciting to anyone anymore after the oversaturation of, frankly, some hilarious Instagram reels of people's reactions. But yeah, yeah, doing good, still doing fine. Been quite a fun night actually.
It has, and we've got I don't know if we'll say fun. I'm going to say unbelievable story today.
Right.
Goodness me, this is one I've had in the chamber for a while.
In the chamber.
Yeah, but before we do, we need to say thank you to all of our Patreons. So for the fourth time tonight, thank you very much to Patrice, Polka Daddy, Ordained Sinister Minister, Devon Sweatshirt, Graves, Heather Wynn, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Crash Rodias, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weather, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibson, Drake Halvig, Only Child, Michael M. Wes Akers, Riaz, Emily Medeiros, Pip, and Philip Hoffman.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, we really do appreciate your support. Just as a reminder, if you have signed up to the Patreon, which you definitely should do, between when we've recorded this at the very end of June and when this is coming out, which will be probably, I think, at the end of August, that's why you've not been included here. But we will include you in future episodes from September. So you will get a shout out if you have signed up. In the meantime, thank you very much, everybody that has. If you want to become a Patreon, you can head over to our Patreon, which is
patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio.
And you can join over there. You can make a small donation, which is just to support us, or you can join as a Bob's Balls member. And Bob's Balls members get all of the additional content that we provide for, well, I was going to say for free, but it's not because you're paying for it because it's a Patreon, but you get all of the additional content.
And also, Chris, you just mentioned September, and that reminded me that...
Do you remember?
No, that reminded me that Septembrio made us a very special song.
Yes, he did.
That we did release on the Patreon.
Did. I'm not sure if I consented to it, but we did release it.
And I think it might be time to release it to all the listeners.
Oh, the general public.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to remember to do this in 2 months' time, Linz. Well, I'll leave that one with you.
Yes.
Everybody, when you're listening to this, just add us and just be like, hey, where's the song? And we'll be like, what song? Oh, that song.
So you might find it tacked onto either this episode at the end or maybe a previous episode. Who knows? But there's a secret Septembrio song that was Patreon only, and maybe you can get access to it.
You can get axed.
You can get axed. But yes, Chris. So you have a unbelievable story for us today, do you?
I do, yes. So we're recording this relatively late at night, and I thought you might need a little pick-me-up for this recording. So here you go, Linz. Some confectionery for you. There you are.
Ooh, Pocky.
Pocky. We all know and love it. Japan's favorite export to Westerners, besides pixelation. However, for the uninitiated out there, Linz, can you describe Pocky?
Can I open it?
Well, go ahead.
It is a little...
Be my guest.
Be my guest. It is a little... like a biscuit stick dipped in chocolate, but they come in all sorts of different flavours. Basically.
Cool. Yeah, pretty much.
ASMR. Or the opposite. Ooh, snapped Pockies. My favourite. Okay.
And could you just take a look at the front of it there?
Glico?
That's right. That's who makes it.
Glico.
Yep.
I know who makes it. I had a lot of Pocky in my life.
Yeah, Pocky and many other sweets are made by Glico, the Japanese confectionery maker. It's cheap, delicious, and full of fun.
And they also make colon.
Mmm. Which, if you've never shoved colon in your mouth, you definitely should.
You're missing out.
So, Pocky, everyone loves it. Nobody would ever suspect that it was fuel or a monster. But Linz, we must begin this story by travelling back in time to the 1980s Japan. So think brick-sized mobile phones, watermelons costing hundreds of dollars, and city pop tunes. At roughly 9 p.m. on the 18th of March, 1984, 70-year-old Yoshie Katsuhisa suddenly heard an odd sound over the TV show that she was watching. She thought nothing of it and went back to her stories. But then suddenly, two masked men burst into her front room. She was confused, but the men made it abundantly clear that they meant business. They were brandishing a gun, a rifle, and a knife. And they wanted only one thing: her Pocky. No, they wanted something else that was in her possession: a key. So they tied up Yoshie with a telephone cord and retrieved this key. Any ideas, Linz? What could this key possibly be for?
The key to the safe with all the
Pocky.
All the Pocky. No, maybe. Is she involved in the Glico company?
Kind of.
Does she have some contracts? Does she have some keys for some build? I don't know.
Well, the key was actually for a nearby house. But you are right that she's involved with Glico. You see, Yoshie's house was constructed on private property, which was owned by her son, who lived in a house just a short walk away.
Mr. Pocky.
Yes, pretty much.
Oh.
Pretty much. It was the key to his house that they wanted. Yoshie's son was Izaki Katsuhisa, the president of Glico.
President Glico.
President Glico.
I'm feeling like that's not as fun as it sounds.
Well, not for at least the next 3 days. The maker of sweet, sweet, delicious Pocky. The two men proceeded directly to his home and entered the front door unchallenged because they had the key. They immediately subdued Izaki's wife and daughter before proceeding to the bathroom where Izaki was bathing. The two men burst into the bathroom and ripped Izaki from the water, corralling him as they went. They subdued the family, tied them up, and Mikeko, his wife, tried to negotiate with them, offering them money to leave them unharmed. The men responded that money was irrelevant and to shut up.
Was he naked when he was tied up?
He was not just naked, he was sopping wet. And they led him outside.
Nightmare.
Where they threw him into the back of the car. Well, definitely a nightmare. This was March. It's cold. Oof. They threw him into the back of the car and sped away into the night. The whole operation was done with such precision that police later concluded that the family had been under surveillance for some time, striking Izaki at exactly the right time for his nightly bath, and even referring to one of the children, Mariko, by name.
Oh, that's really creepy. I'm guessing it's a money thing? Gotta be.
Money is irrelevant.
Oh.
According to these people.
Oh, it's personal.
At around midnight, that same night, a call was made to Glico Company headquarters and gave directions to a nearby phone booth. An employee who was working late went there on the orders and discovered a ransom note demanding the equivalent of $9 million US.
So it is about money.
And 220 pounds of gold bullion in exchange for Izaki's safe return.
Is he really worth it? I'm kidding.
I know, Pocky's pretty delicious.
I'm sure they can continue, unless he's got the secret recipe, which doesn't look that secret to me, just eyeballing it.
The men had taken Izaki to a warehouse in Ibaraki, Osaka, which was roughly half an hour from the scene of the kidnapping. Now, to put this into context, Linz, there had only been 27 kidnappings in the whole of Japan the previous year. So, to say this was sensational is the understatement of the century. Izaki was in that warehouse for 3 days while the company worked with police to try and decide the best path forward. It was decided by the family that the ransom would be paid, but that police would deliver it and apprehend the suspects.
I feel like that's not how things go down. Like, when you're paying a ransom, isn't it like no police or will...
Well, undercover police, posing as employees.
Listen, once I was playing...
Once I was kidnapped.
Once I was playing a punk show, well, almost. Once I was playing a punk show in, it was either Poland or Germany, and it's a punk show, by the way. Some undercover cops came in trying to sell drugs to people there at a punk show. Oh, they were so obvious right away. Guess what they were wearing to blend into this punk rock crowd?
White t-shirts and jeans.
Bootcut, stonewashed jeans, pointed shoes, Leonard Skinner t-shirts, and racer neck leather jackets.
I mean, that's what punks wear, isn't it?
Obviously, the chief police said, "You're going to a concert." Blended undercover cops, man. I don't know in Japan. Maybe they got a better game over there.
We shall see. Now, the instructions were to place money and gold into a van and to drive this van to a specified location. However, when undercover officers took the van to this meeting point, nobody turned up to collect money.
Because they're always watching, aren't they?
The only response from the kidnappers were messages sent to police featuring Izaki's voice to prove that they had him. Now, Izaki was roughed up a little bit, but generally treated quite well as far as kidnappings go. And one of the captors supposedly took pity on him and swapped his handcuffs for ropes. And this would allow Izaki to escape, as ropes are far more malleable than handcuffs are. And when he was left alone, which is a unusual thing for kidnappers to do.
Yeah, they're not pros, obviously. It's rare you feel sorry for you. Not that I've kidnapped many people, but I assume it's in a lot of movies.
Well, when he was left alone, he managed to escape and get out of the warehouse. Now, bear in mind, this warehouse was actually rather small. So it was a flood control warehouse, not much bigger than your average size house, really. So it was quite small, but it was rather remote. And on the way out, he did note that he could hear a faint child's voice.
Okay. Was it a home? No.
No, it wasn't a home.
Okay.
No, not at all. It was very much it was a staging ground for floods, basically, where they could an elevated position where if the river, the various areas around there flooded, they could use that as a base of operations. It was really just 2 floors. He was kept on the 2nd floor. And when he escaped, he wandered, found some railway workers who rescued him and took him to the police.
Okay.
And Izaki was then quickly whisked to a press conference by police to get the story out there. Calm the media frenzy, although they had asked the media not to say anything. And Japanese media and police do work together quite well. That wouldn't happen over here. So they hadn't said anything, but now that the promise was, as soon as he's out, you can report.
No Daily Mail in Japan, noted.
Oh, no. So while this was going on, police checked out the site. They even took Izaki back to walk them through what had happened. But they found very little evidence there that would help with the investigation. It was clear that people had been there who weren't supposed to be there. So Izaki may have escaped, but a war was about to be waged.
A Pocky War.
A Pocky War. The first ever war where one side was primarily a confectionery company. Well, the first since the Great Skittles Uprising of 1542, anyway. But first, a letter to police.
Oh, yes. To Japanese police fools. Are you stupid? There's so many of you. What on earth are you doing? If you are real pros, try catching me. There's too much handicap, so I'll give you a hint. There's no fellows in the Ezekai's relatives. There's no fellows in Nishinomiya police. There's no fellows in flood fighting corps. Car I used is grey. Food is bought at Daiei. If you want a new info, beg for it in the newspaper. After telling you all this, you should be able to catch me. If you don't, you are tax thieves. Shall I kidnap the head director of the prefectural police?
The first of many taunting letters
Cocky, eh?
came through. And on the evening of April 10th, several cars at the Glico parking lot fell victim to an arson attack.
Okay.
Then, shortly afterwards, a container was found inside the headquarters, or at least a warehouse, containing hydrochloric acid and a threatening letter to Glico. So, whoever these people were had gained access to the company headquarters.
They're already inside the building.
Nobody at the company felt safe, and the stock price began to plummet. The letters came pouring in, not just to the police, but to the media and to Glico as well. And they all featured the same taunting, harassing nature, touting the ineffectiveness of the police, but they didn't have an identity. That is, until the 10th of May, when a letter was received, signed The Monster with 21 Faces.
I think in passing I may have seen this
Maybe.
name.
Right? I mean, it's quite an evocative name. I mean, the Monster with 21 Faces, or Kaijin Nijuichi Menso in Japanese, is quite terrifying in itself, but it's also a play on a classic bit of children's literature. Edogawa Rampo's The Fiend with 20 Faces, from his The Boys Detective Club series of books, in which the Fiend with 20 Faces is the main adversary for the heroes throughout the series, and is remarkable for his ability to go unnoticed and for possibly being almost anybody in disguise. You can see how this might inspire or relate to what our assailants are doing here. It's clear what they're trying to say is that they could be almost anywhere at any time.
Or more than one person.
Well, that as well.
An octopus with many tentacles.
Our Monster with 21 Faces, though, as we said, began sending letters to the media, taunting the ineffectiveness of the police. But believe it or not, that was not the most terrifying thing about this letter that came through. You see, they were no longer peacocking or making simple demands for money. No, this time the monster claimed that it had prepared and laced millions of dollars worth of Glico stock with cyanide and was poised to distribute it to the shelves. And at this point, I'll just ask,
wait.
How was that, Pocky?
No, don't say that. You played the long game. It was really good. And to be honest, death by Pocky, probably not the worst fate someone in my position would suffer.
There is a very curious element to all of this, though, which is the perpetrators act like maniacs, but seem to have a big respect for human life in some ways. They warn before they do.
And the handcuffs for ropes and...
The handcuffs for ropes. Even the weapons that they used in the kidnapping. Iyazaki mentioned later on that he was fairly sure that they were all props. Not real. I mean, it makes sense. Maybe not a knife, but it's extremely difficult to get a gun in Japan. So
yeah.
it's most likely they were toy replicas. And I can also say that in Japan it is very easy to get toy replica
It's a bit
guns.
embarrassing when you
Mm.
think about being kidnapped with props.
It is, but even if you
It would be
weren't,
scary.
um,
But yeah, it sounds kind of funny. They're just trying to make a point.
But as we'll see, the more as we go on, the warning was loud and clear, and authorities had no way to know if they were lying about the cyanide. There could potentially be cyanide-flavored Pocky on shelves nationwide.
Brutal. That's pretty hardcore.
All Glico stock was recalled, and supermarkets refused to shelve any more that was made. And this caused $20 million of initial damage to Glico and an estimated $130 million of damage in loss of sales.
It's kind of punk rock way to take down a company.
It is.
I'm wondering if this is personal beef.
Oh,
Gotta be.
Despite the recall, no cyanide was actually found amongst the packages. The first lead in the case, though, was a man was caught on CCTV placing a Glico Pocky box, which was not sold in the store during this period because it had been cleared out, onto a store shelf. Would you like to see this footage?
Yes. Was this a cyanide Pocky?
No, it wasn't. Placing a Pocky box down, which wasn't sold, so that's what triggered them to take a look at the CCTV footage. How did this item that wasn't sold yet end up there?
Right. So they found it and they were like, okay, it's all been recalled. But that feels. So was it? It was just a regular box of Pocky that he has put on the shelf that he's brought in himself.
Yes.
So we had this black and white, old school footage of a man dressed quite smartly, but he's got the classic American movie, like going undercover cap and spectacles on, whether he needs them or not, or they're part of the disguise, who knows? But that was it creepy or was it just weird?
It's an odd thing to do, definitely. The man, as you say, places something on a supermarket shelf.
Yeah.
Where candy was later found. I found some descriptions saying it was poison, some that it wasn't. So
I
I
feel
don't
like
know. I'm going to go with saying it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't confirm either way at this point, but if it was poisoned, that's evil. If it wasn't poisoned, that's just freaking weird. And I feel like it's something you would do hoping that the staff would look at the footage. It's just a strange move.
Well, presumably he was planting it for whatever reason.
Was he involved? Oh, am I...
Well, there's very few suspects in this case.
Right. So he's like a potential maybe, possibly, but who knows?
Believe it or not, that video footage is one of the best leads that there is in this case.
Right.
The gentleman's wearing a baseball hat, which it's very difficult to see in this footage, but is actually featuring the logo of the Yomiuri Giants baseball team in Japan. He's wearing glasses, and he has permed hair poking out.
Which would have been quite popular then.
Yeah, very, very, very popular in the 80s in Japan, especially in men as well. I tend to think of perm, you think of women getting
not so much in
perm,
Asia.
But not so much in Asia, no. Now, the quality of that footage, how was it? Was it crystal clear?
Oh, hell no. It was just basic convenience store.
It's even worse than that. So the quality of this footage is not only poor because of the low lighting, not just because of the technology at the time, but crucially, because the security tape had not been changed in over a year.
Oh, God. Oh, it would have been actual tape.
Actually, physical VHS or some, it might have been Betamax. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was an actual physical tape that is supposed to get changed every so often. It gets written over every day. And this is what caused the exceptionally poor quality footage. Now, you might think that this is negligent. And in some degrees, yeah, it is. But on the other side, Japan is got an exceptionally low crime rate. So they probably hadn't really even looked at the footage for any reason up until this point. So nobody had probably actually noticed how degraded this was. But they still should have been changing that tape to be responsible. Now, this footage was widely distributed, but unsurprisingly, it turned up very little,
Mm-hmm.
considering that these were the best images that could be shared.
I mean, you could recognize someone. Like I could recognize you on that because I know you, and you could probably recognize me.
Hmm.
But obviously, this guy is just like nondescript, and he's just wearing basic stuff. And that hat is probably he doesn't wear that all the time, and it's just like very. There's nothing that stands out about him, so he could probably just take that cap off, throw the jacket over his shoulder, and he's someone else on blurry footage, you know?
That's right. And um, I'm trying to send you an image here.
Okay, this still looks a bit better.
It does. It's been cleaned up, but this is the best image that could be shared.
Okay,
So it's not. You can't even see the face.
just in case you didn't know where to look, there's a giant red circle around the only man in the picture.
Well, personally, I think that somebody with a giant red ring around their face would be quite easy to identify. However, this man was never identified. There was no even suspects, really. So it's unknown if he was behind the scheme, if he was a copycat, or if this was something entirely innocent for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Maybe I'm just spitballing here, but maybe he had some Pocky at home and thought, I don't know what to do with this, and then I'll return it to the store and
Yeah,
put it on
like
the shelf.
just that is also a possibility, like a completely unrelated thing, like a man thinking he's doing something nice by
Mhm.
sharing his non-cyanide tainted
Yeah.
Pocky. But I don't know. I mean, you know what? I think this is probably not even a suspect. I think it's just some guy thinking he's doing a thing, and unfortunately, he's become the only suspect in this insane so far case.
Well, there is another suspect who
Ooh.
we'll get on to, but during all of this time throughout the ordeal, the monster with 21 faces, or M21 as I'm going to refer to them for this point for ease, was peppering the police, media, and Glico with messages, and all of them using the same mocking and taunting about how they should have been so easily caught, but they haven't. They continued to make financial demands of Glico, and although the company swears that they never paid a single yen to the group, occasionally police would receive recordings. Often, and usually though, they featured the voice of a woman and a young child in place of those claiming to be those making the demands.
What? Oh, but you said there was the voice of a young child.
Right, it exactly did say that he heard a child when he was imprisoned in that warehouse. This ordeal had been plaguing Glico, but suddenly, out of the blue, on June 26th, M21 issued a letter to the press forgiving Glico. The letter read,
The president of Glico has already gone around with his head hanging down long enough. We would like to forgive him. In our group, there's also a 4-year-old kid. Every day he cries for Glico. It's a drag to make a kid cry because he's deprived of the candy he loves. Japan has gotten terribly hot and humid, so when our work is done, we want to go to Europe. Geneva, Paris, London. We'll be in one of those places. Let's bring Pocky, the traveler's friend. Delicious Glico products. We're eating them too. See you in January of next year. What? What the fuck is that? Is this a weird family? A kid in our group? Is this just not a family who have beef with the...
it is possible that is an explanation.
In our
Honestly,
group, there's also a 4-year-old kid. Group? Is that like adults who live with their parents and call them roommates?
possibly this could be anything. There is so little information that was actually turned up on this that honestly it is open for anything. This could be a mother and child that they have hostage. It could be anything, or it could be their children. It could be their sister. It could be anything. We don't know, but it's somebody who, for whatever reason, feels confident enough to appear on police tapes.
They seem...
Tapes sent to police.
Yeah, they seem to like just be proving a point. And other than, of course, the kidnapping, they broke and enter and they kidnapped, but they didn't hurt or kill.
Mhm.
So maybe they thought like they're not doing severe crimes, but they want to prove some kind of point.
Yeah.
They seem kind of annoying.
The problem is, with all of this, as we'll get on to in a moment, they do seem like they're trying to prove a point,
But they want money too, and they said it wasn't about money.
but nobody can work out what the point was. So this is the difficult part, is there seems to be no motive.
It's like they're just saying everyone's stupid except us. And it's like, okay. Is it young people?
Well, we don't. Let's move on, and we'll
yeah,
see.
Yeah, that's something we can discuss at the end, I guess. We have all the facts.
But as they forgive Glico, another company began receiving letters.
Oh, God, they've moved on.
Marudai, which is mainly a meat company. They produce meat products.
Better target to go after.
And they offered M21, I should say, contacted them and said, "Look, we'll start a campaign against you, but we'll stop right now if you pay us 50 million yen, roughly $250,000.
Right.
The company agreed,
Oh,
but the police decided to use this as a sting operation.
okay.
So M21 wanted to complete the transaction in flamboyant fashion on a train heading from Osaka to Kyoto. An undercover police operative, posing as a Marudai employee, was given detailed instructions on exactly where to sit on the train and to watch out for the window when they would see a white flag waving. And when they saw that white flag, they were to throw the bag out the window, where it would then be retrieved by M21.
Mm-hmm.
However, operatives noticed that there was some unusual people on the train itself. There was somebody seated with a rather odd radio on the carriage. You wouldn't really have a radio, and they seemed to be playing with it quite a lot. So they were initially
Like a radio,
for communication,
like a walkie-talkie.
like a walkie-talkie. But remember, this is quite chunky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the 80s. However, another man drew their attention, who embarked the train and immediately locked eyes with the man who was carrying the money. This man would go on to become the prime suspect in all of this and is known as the Fox-Eyed Man. The police have a sketch of him. This is a later one. Linz, could you please describe this gentleman?
Okay. I'm kind of scared. Oh God. Okay. Fox-eyed man. He does have like quite like upturned almond eyes, like quite tight. I wouldn't. I don't recall. Yeah, fox-eyed. That's a good description. He just looks like an average sort of older middle-aged man. He's wearing a suit and tie. Glasses, wavy hair. Looks like the guy from the. Oh, he does resemble the man from the footage.
So it could be him. There's two schools of thought. These are different people, or this is the same man.
I mean, it was probably like a fashion thing back then. A lot of people wear glasses, and a lot of people would have had sort of a waved, permed hair in the 80s, and I guess formal, like wear for like a worker, salary guy. Probably everyone is wearing similar formal office or business attire.
You
Quite
could walk
dark
down
lips.
almost any street really and not be.
Yeah, but I guess his eyes do make him stand out because they're quite. Yeah, like on it. I don't know if they've just drawn it this way, but it's the first thing you're drawn to. It's quite like a small, tight sort of eye shape. Yeah.
Well, there was some conjecture that because of his eye shape, that this man must be Korean or of Korean heritage. However, I'd personally just add in here that this is a fairly common accusation in Japan, that when a crime is committed, that this person must be of Korean heritage. So I wouldn't
Uh,
personally read
yeah.
too much into that.
I don't think. I don't think he. I think he's just. It's sort of like he doesn't have double eyelid,
Mhm.
which it just sort of like emphasizes the shape of his eyes. That's all it is. I don't
Yeah.
think it really suggests anything.
Well, the only person that was ever actually accused of anything in this case, we'll get to that later, was not Korean. So,
Yeah, it couldn't possibly be anyone from Japan. It must be some other person. It's just like, oh, come on.
whenever a crime's committed in Japan, there's always
It's someone else.
10 generations before they were Korean.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
So everyone waited on this train with bated breath, waiting for the white flag. But it never appeared. Did the man with the radio somehow send a signal that the operation was off? Who knows? But the train soon arrived in Kyoto and everyone disembarked. The radio operative disappeared. Police lost him almost instantly in the throng of people, never to be seen again. Crucially, nobody in the police bothered to track that man. They all stayed on the fox-eyed man, who stayed relatively visible, not hiding himself at all. He was tailing the money carrier's every move. As he moved towards a payphone to call into HQ for further orders, he did ask should they engage this man, but he was told no. Do not engage unless this man initiates anything, because you need to look for the bigger prize. More arrests. At various points, police lost the fox-eyed man, only for him to turn up again and again later on down the path as the man changed trains, trying to get back to the origin station where he'd be met by another undercover officer to be escorted back to the police station with the money. Although HQ had been made aware of this situation, they had issued a very clear order. The fox-eyed man was not to be engaged unless he made the first move, which he never made.
What would the first move be?
Want to approach them, to engage, to try and take the money.
He's not that silly. The fox-eyed man. He's
I mean, he's tailing them the entire way though, and actually even turns up on the origin platform. He's there the whole way.
You know what? It's the more this picture is sitting staring at me, the more creeped out I actually feel. I don't know if they've just drawn him to look like sinister, but oh my gosh. Like he's probably walking around following them with that very expression.
Around 4 months later after this instance, similar threatening letters from M21 appeared in the mail at Morinaga, which is Glico's chief competition in the candy sector. And they followed a similar MO. Give us money or we will poison your products. However, this time the letter was accompanied by a baggie of sodium cyanide, showing M21 were through with empty threats. Morinaga did not pay that $400,000 ransom. So a few days later, this lovely letter was sent to the press.
It's actually escalating. To mothers throughout Japan, in autumn, when appetites are strong, sweets are really delicious. When you think sweets, no matter what you say, it's Morinaga. We've added some special flavor. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter. It won't cause tooth decay, so buy the sweets for your kids. We've attached a notice on these bitter sweets that they contain poison. We've put 20 boxes in stores from Hakata to Tokyo. Jesus, it's proper psychotic. It's sort of like you know when you see a sort of horror movie and they have one of those fake 1950s adverts.
Yeah.
It's like a zombie housewife making some food. It's like that. Like he's just writing a sort of like candy advert with some awful threats within. It's really psycho, like, and then they're saying like their group has children in it, and like, I feel like this is some psycho family who, you know, like the Korean movie Parasite.
Mm-hmm.
like a sort of family who's not doing as well as other families, and they sort of like, instead of trying to like infiltrate their way in and live that lifestyle, it's like other, is it a it could be like a family living in that abandoned um flood house thing or warehouse, whatever it was, and they're just like bitter. Like he's the salary man, but they can't rent anyway. They're just getting more bitter by the day.
I mean, it's as good a theory as any, to be honest, when it comes to this case.
Yeah, I'm getting like that kind of vibe, but it's freaking me out. He looks like an angry husband. I don't like.
Well, this time, M21 followed through. Police found 12 items of choco balls and angel pies labeled in Japanese as danger, contains poison. You'll die if you eat this. The monster with 21 faces.
And did it contain the poison?
6 of these actually contained cyanide.
Oh my god.
And they followed this incident up with letters to Morinaga claiming that next time there would be no labels. And Morinaga was now in a very similar position to their rival, having all of their stocks pulled nationwide. This nearly forced the company into administration, causing widespread redundancies, and the government actually having to step in to try and save the company by encouraging investment in it.
What? You know what? This tactic is insane.
Isn't it? It's
Did you ever hear of like the Tylenol poisonings?
yes. So that's a similar one that's often
Yeah.
to do with this, and there was another series of poisonings earlier in Japan actually that had a similar case to the Tylenol poisonings.
It was always sort of a little fear of mine as a kid that like food you'd buy in shops would have been like, there was that urban legend. I suppose it's not that much of an urban legend now that we know these cases exist, but of someone putting like a needle,
Mm-hmm.
hypodermic needle, and injecting
Yeah,
the food in the supermarket, and you'd be like, oh, how can we know if it's safe? But yeah, like
it's terrifying.
anyone could sort of do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when you buy food from shelves, you buy a
You
drink.
just trust it, don't
You
you?
do.
Like I just ate that pocky you gave me.
Mm-hmm.
I trusted you.
I mean, we still don't know. I'll reveal at the end if it's poisoned.
Well, I suppose I'll reveal it.
All I'll say is we better get on with this. Um,
I hope you like editing.
So by November of 1984, M21 was targeting various companies, including house foods, makers of various foods such as Japanese curry, now in cyanide flavor. Once again, the story repeated itself. Threats for money, and the police decided to do a new operation. Overseen by the police superintendent of the prefecture that the sting was to take place in. Overseen by the police superintendent that the prefecture of the sting was to take place in, Shiga. At least the police now had a suspect in the description of the Kitsune me no Otoko, or the fox-eyed man. Although the public had not seen this etch-a-sketch portrait that you saw before at this point for fear of inducing panic, but police indeed did spot him loitering near the public drop-off point at a roadside station. Now, but once again, he evaded police and did not approach.
How? How can you lose one guy?
Mm-hmm. That's not the craziest bit, though. Actually, earlier in the day, a completely unrelated police officer, just a regular beat cop, had approached a car that had been idling by the roadside station for a suspiciously long time. As he approached the car, he came face to face with the fox-eyed man. He was hunched over with a golf cap over his eyes and headphones in his ears. The man, upon seeing the police officer, quickly sped off into the distance in a station wagon, later returning once the coast was clear. But the flag, once again, they're using a flag to indicate things here, that was supposed to be placed on a fence to indicate that they should drop off the money, was on the floor, indicating that the drop was off. Later, police found this station wagon abandoned and a huge revelation inside it.
Ooh.
a vacuum cleaner.
Oh.
Also of note was that the car was fitted with a police radio. M21, or at least this individual, had been listening in on police the whole time, and it explained how the group were always able to get ahead of the investigators and avoid the stings. The radio was actually capable of listening in to police across 6 prefectures,
God
which
damn
is
it.
the equivalent of 6 states in the United States.
Honestly, like, why didn't they think of that?
I think it was just unbelievable that this could happen, to be honest. I don't think that anything like this had ever happened before.
Clearly not, because, like, yeah, that's a thing. You could tune in to play, well, you
Mhm.
still kind of can, but
Mhm.
I mean, they do use mobile, like cell phones
Yeah.
and stuff now, but yeah, you could just tune in and hear everything and just be 10 steps ahead at all times. I wonder if they worked for the companies at some point, like at least Glico.
Well, this is one of the theories.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get onto that a little bit
It
later
could be
on.
like, oh, there must be so many theories because you don't know. You could just speculate forevermore.
Anything, anybody.
Yeah, but I am thinking that the footage is the fox-eyed man.
It potentially it could be. I mean,
I mean, he loved a cap.
they're two. They're identified as two different people: the fox-eyed man and the video nootoko, or the videotape man. But they could very well be the same person.
I'm thinking that like maybe it's like a cult and they all have glasses, permed hair, and caps.
The car. See, this is something you can investigate now. You've got some evidence.
Mm-hmm.
It had been stolen several
Yeah.
months earlier. Neither it nor the vacuum cleaner could be traced.
Yeah.
The fox-eyed man had got away once again, evading the police despite the very close call. This was unwittingly. This was the closest they ever came to getting him.
At this point, I'd just chuck a net over him
Yeah.
and be like, I don't care if he makes contact.
He was embarrassing the Shiga police
Yeah.
left, right and centre. M21 then began attacking companies en masse. Morinaga was at the end of another attack with more poisoned, albeit labelled, packages of their confectionery being found once again. M21 demanded Fujiya, a Japanese restaurant chain, throw mounds of cash from skyscrapers in Tokyo and Osaka, and Meiji and Lot, two other major confectionery makers in Japan, receiving similar threats to Glico and Morinaga in the run-up to Valentine's Day, 1985's obviously most popular day for chocolate.
Oh my gosh! And like like asking them to throw money,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a little bit Robin Hood,
A little bit.
but also a little bit poisoning the public potentially,
Mm.
which is
Well, there were some who were on the side initially of the monster, finding them to somehow be in this sort of Robin Hood role, almost.
yeah, like
Although,
big corporations taking them down, threatening them. But these letters, were they written
yes,
and it, like they identified
were they
that they
written?
were all the same
Were they written?
from one
I
source?
think they were typed, actually. I think they were on a typewriter.
Right.
Yes, sorry. They were on a typewriter because one of the taunting letters gave the make of the typewriter
Right.
to try and say, this is a bit of evidence that you can use to catch me. But ultimately, all of the evidence that they gave over the bits of information were next to useless in tracking
Yeah.
somebody. By this point, it had been near a year of torment for Japan, and public criticism was at an all-time high for the police for a country that has generally been considered pretty safe, and with a police force with a 99% conviction rate. This was a collective national jizz stain on the standard issue police pantaloons.
Excuse me.
The police needed a scapegoat, and having been head of the most recent failure operation, Police Superintendent Shoji Yamamoto, 59, was chosen to be relieved of his duties.
Ooh.
In Japan, nobody, especially civil servants, really lose their jobs. So actually, he was technically removed from his position and reassigned to the National Police Agency, the NPA. But Yamamoto.
Did he push pencils or?
Well, that's probably what they were going to
Yeah.
be getting him to do, really. But Yamamoto was not going to take this, however. promptly went home, grabbed a few bits and bobs, and went out to his garden. Kneeling down, he undid the cap of the container that he'd brought outside and doused himself in kerosene.
Oh, God.
He then lit a match and went up in flames, dying of self-immolation.
What?
He killed himself by setting himself on fire as a
That
form
is
of suicide.
brutal.
Mhm.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine doing that.
Believe it or not, in a weird way, Yamamoto might have saved the whole thing unwittingly, because shortly afterwards, this letter was sent to the press from the monster with 21 faces.
Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hiding place in Shiga. It's Yoshino or Shikata who should have died. What have they been doing for as long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many more fools who want to copy us. No Korea Yamamoto died like a man, so we decided to give our condolences. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Monster with 21 faces. What?
How bizarre is this? They just give up. Boom, we're done.
I feel like they felt a bit guilty.
Well, it returns to that strange sort of, when I said the non-violence or the strange sort of respect they seem to have for human life. At the first actual death as a result of the group, they fold. And they don't just fold, mind you. They disappear, never to be heard of again.
I feel like they had a clear motive and it didn't go the way that they expected it to. And they kind of backpedaled and went, oh shit. But like the whole I don't know if it's just the translation that makes it look a bit funny. But when they're like, we are bad guys, that means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's like, okay, so
It's kind of like they're saying, we're not doing this anymore, but we're definitely going to do other things.
yeah, exactly. It's like, listen, I'm like really scary. I'm not going to scare you anymore. I'm going to go scare somewhere else. And it's just like, I feel like it's kind of, I think it's probably just the translation, but it's just like they're kind of like gloating, looking down on the cops, calling them stupid idiots, which, you know, they weren't solving these crimes.
Well, this is it really. You know, even with all the damage that it caused, an estimated 1/5 of Japan's police force somehow being involved with this investigation over the year and change of terror, nothing.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, complete radio silence from the group too,
Forever.
forever. Even, you know, the statute of limitations finally ran out in 2000. And at that point, the NPA officially and publicly admitted that they were defeated by M21. And nobody, even after that, has come forward with any information about the group whatsoever.
Oh, the fox-eyed man.
Honestly, this case just gets more bizarre the more you look into it. So I would encourage people to look at it because there's more things
Right.
to this. There's a whole episode where Hokkaido police, Hokkaido being the completely opposite end of the country from Osaka, they pick up a ham radio communication, seemingly between somebody and the monster with 21 faces, but they can only catch the non-monster side of the conversation. There's the whole issue with the woman and the child being used to give demands. Honestly, there's just this iceberg of things with this case. And this podcast is certainly not supposed to be a definitive look into it, more of an intrigue of start having a look at some of the more information. I definitely recommend the Monster with 21 Faces podcast and the Monster with 21faces.com, which was vital to getting kind of a timeline right on this. However, Linz, before we get into suspects and theories, what are your thoughts on this case?
I'm just thinking like there's a bit of a Robin Hood. There's a bit of a Robin Hood kind of aspect to it. You know, like fuck the police, fuck all of these massive companies. But I I don't get what the end goal was. As for like maybe just showing that you can't that they could do it. They could fuck with them. They could they can control companies, they can control the market in a way just with threats and then, you know, kind of going through with poisoning some of the products. But as for who it is, you know, we've done like a couple of cases on crazy shit that happened in Japan. And you know, like there was that the cult. Remember the cult?
Hmm.
Where a guy was sort of dating women and having
Yeah.
wives and bringing them all in and their kids in and then
Hmm.
having them turn on each other and everything. And I feel like it could be a group like that, like a dysfunctional group who maybe they don't all believe in the common goal, but they're there. Because like the woman and the child, I mean, Occam's razor, the kid is the child of the woman, and possibly I don't know who, the fox-eyed man, the radio man, whoever, like you know, they're a family or they're connected. I don't know where they got the idea. They started with Glico, I guess, because it's the biggest candy company, and they're like, oh, if you want to hit a big corporation, that's one that you can hit. Their products are absolutely everywhere. Everyone eats them. We eat them here
Hmm.
as well. But in Japan, they're absolutely everywhere. Easy to fuck with the product.
It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of genius. All you have to do is threaten the product is contaminated,
Mm.
and you can affect a company like 20 million.
Yeah.
You know, they can lose it. But it's like, I don't like the warehouse he was taken to. Like you said, they had a bit of sympathy for the guys. The president of Glico is sort of like comfort,
Yeah.
which is quite bizarre for quote unquote bad guys to have. Although they are kind of like acting sort of like a gang. But like you said, they don't have any real weapons. They look very inconspicuous.
I mean, it's not for sure that these weren't real guns, but it's highly suspected that they weren't.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you don't often see them. You know, it will probably be something else, but yeah, but they're stealing vehicles. I feel like they're pretty thorough in their planning. I don't feel like it's obviously like very organized. It's done by a close group of people who, to this day, haven't tried to claim the fame of it all, even though they probably won't get any punishment anymore. Like you said, statute of limitations. It's. I think this is going to become my new Summerton man. I do.
Well, I mean, theories.
Hmm.
So we've touched on a couple, but there are various theories that have been thrown out there. Everything from North Korean spies to communist uprisings. Police were quick to venture that the Yakuza may have been involved, as this was smack bang in the middle of one of the biggest Yakuza family conflicts ever, the Yamaichi War, although little evidence exists to support this.
I considered that, but it doesn't feel Yakuza.
It doesn't really.
The letters don't scream Yakuza to me.
They don't. Yakuza are very different about how they go, but they're more likely to join the board of Glico
Mm.
and then force their way through it that way. It's.
Although they did manage to control without being part of.
I mean, you can't completely eliminate that as an option, but it seems unlikely. So the three main theories that we have. Number one, you touched on this before. An ex-employee of Glico. The kidnapping of Izaki was so well planned, it points to inside knowledge.
Hmm.
One of the kidnappers even called the child by name, remember. This could also go some way to explaining how M21 seemingly gained access to Glico to start fires and leave threatening letters. Remember, they couldn't do that with any of the other companies. They didn't gain access to them. So could it be that this is either a current or an ex-employee that has a little bit of an inside track with it? And maybe they forgave Glico because it was affecting them or affecting other people. There were layoffs. There was all sorts that were
Yeah,
happening.
I think you're onto something there because they did seem they started with Glico. Maybe they felt like the net could have been closing in if they didn't target other companies and make it look a bit more random.
Mm,
Yeah, there could be something to that. Calling the kid by name, I suppose if they were tracking this family, when they take the kid to school, pick them up in public places, the parent could have called the kid by their name. They could have got that info. Their kid could have went to school. Like, how old was the president's kid? Around 8,
not sh-
maybe.
not sure exactly how old she was, but they were school-age children.
Exactly. I mean, they could even go. They could have went to school together.
You could find that out relatively easy.
Yeah,
A public figure's children
exactly.
is probably printed somewhere in an interview
Newspaper.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not that crazy. Knowing what time he takes his bath and stuff, I mean, could also be quite guessable if someone's a stickler for routine.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. I feel like it's an ex or current member. Maybe they lost their.
Well, here's an interesting one for you.
Okay, okay.
Theory number two. It is somebody in Glico. The president of Glico himself, Izaki.
He kidnapped himself from the bathtub.
Or perhaps he staged the whole thing.
Mm.
People who support this theory cite his escape from the captors as unrealistic and suspicious. Why would they take pity on you? Why
Yeah.
would they leave you alone and unguarded? A possible but only speculative motivation could have been stock prices.
Yeah. Manipulating the market.
Izaki could have managed to manipulate the shares, maybe in other companies that went up as Glico went down, to make a personal killing before repeating it again with other companies once he had the formula down. Maybe if it wasn't him,
Mm.
maybe it was somebody else doing that exact same thing. Um, this this could be anybody though. I mean, the same MO. He's personally denied it and said it's absolutely ridiculous. He's continued on with his presidentship of Glico. Um, it wouldn't have to be the president of the company that was being primarily harassed necessarily.
And in the 80s in Japan, wasn't their economy like amazing and then it
Yeah.
absolutely ate shit?
So yeah, it was something called the bubble economy,
Yeah, exactly.
which was either in the very late 80s. It was after this case, or the very early 90s. I can't remember off the top of my head. That's where it popped. And
Yeah, I think it was the later 80s where it popped. I don't know if that's something you could have seen coming. You might want a bit of a government help.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, you could have. You have to be pretty financially well-minded because a lot of people know.
President of Glico?
Maybe, but I mean, that's one thing. I mean, this was an excessive time in Japan. People
Yeah.
were getting paid a lot of money,
Yeah, yeah.
hand over fist, because of this bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, when the bubble popped, everything went to shit.
Yep.
But that's where the reputation of Japan being expensive comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't expensive, but inside of its own bubble to outsiders, it was very expensive coming in. Number three, most interestingly, maybe, a man named Manabu Miyazaki.
Huh. That.
He not only fits the
Oh my
identikit sketch.
God, you could layer the photo on top of the composite sketch and it's
Mhm.
the same fucking man?
Mm-hmm.
Hold up. Right down to the shape of the hairline?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The glasses, the eyes are exactly the same. The nose, the neck. You could lay that on top of the composite sketch. It's like it was drawn from the photo.
Mm-hmm.
So who is this guy? He looks like someone I actually know in real life.
Well, he not only looks like the sketch, he also had former friction with Glico.
Oh, come on, that's gotta be him.
You see, Manabu had been a whistleblower on Glico roughly 10 years earlier during union disputes. actually revealing that Glico had been dumping industrial waste in rivers and lakes. Boo.
Boo.
Upon investigation, it also turned up that his father was a Yakuza boss.
Come on, man. That is perfect.
It's all fitting the profile. Except he provided police with watertight alibis that were corroborated in various ways, leaving no doubt that he was not the fox-eyed man. However, looking at the two side by side, you can easily see why he would be accused of it. In fact, when the picture was released, even his own mother came up to him and asked, "Oh, Manabu, what have you done?"
Yes. Has he got like
An evil twin.
No, like his dad, because the composite sketch looks a lot older.
It does.
And he has the darkening of the lips and stuff, which comes with age. And I feel like, does he have like an uncle? An older. Like that. That could be like, if I was his mom, I'd be the same. Like, oh my God. That is. What a coincidence. And I mean, the profile fits. Watertight alibi? Are you sure? You mean like for him being on the train and following them and all that?
Well, at the times when the fox-eyed man was seen, he was verified as being somewhere else.
Right, but
on both occasions.
I want like that. Maybe check this verification process because that is the same fucking guy.
Well, Miyazaki was seemingly not involved, but as always, was happy to cash in. Ka-ching. He took those 15 minutes of fame. He became a minor celebrity.
Of course he
as a
did.
Commenter, and even latterly released a book in which he covers other criminal activity that he was involved in, but
my life story.
Completely denies any involvement in this case. Still, he was happy to use the drawing of the fox-eyed man on the front cover. At a press conference to launch the book with the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan, Miyazaki joked that the most compelling bit of evidence was the Yomori Giant's cap. You see, he's a lifelong die-hard Hanshin Tigers fan, and he wouldn't wear a Yomori Giant's cap under any circumstances.
Wouldn't be caught dead in that.
Fair enough, mate. Frustratingly, Linz, this is where it all ends. A nation terrorized by the threat of poisoned food. A national scandal that all just went away. Just like that. No leads, no loose lips, nothing. It's quite amazing that a group could take something this far and then just walk away, seemingly with nothing to show for it. Never picked up any money, no company ever paid them.
I feel like these letters in their original form, the Japanese, I feel like there'll be some code in them individually or across them. No, I do, because like they were trying to give clues, like a Zodiac killer kind of thing. I think they were trying to give clues of calling the cops stupid, and I think like they were taunting them in a way that they were frustrated, where they're like, "It's in front of your fucking face." Like, I honestly think this is going to become my new summit in man, but because it's originally in Japanese, it would just be too difficult for me to like play around with the letters and stuff. But my God, like
the only bit of information that I turned up about the letters was one of the early letters before they were signed. Monster of 21 Faces was written with some words and some phrases which police determined meant that this was Osaka dialect, which is quite a strong dialect in Japan. It's fairly easy to tell. But the thing in Japan is
it's like writing YI at the end of your letter.
Exactly. They don't really have accents so much, but they do have certain phrases, certain ways of saying things, certain endings of sentences, like up in Hokkaido where I live, sa at the end of a sentence. You could easily tell somebody's from Hokkaido if they did that. So it was determined that this was somebody from Osaka, but that doesn't really help, considering that Osaka is the second biggest city in Japan. The
Yeah.
kidnappings happened in Osaka, and the company was based in Osaka. Okay, great. So it's what, a whole city plus anyone who's ever moved or lived in the area. Brilliant.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's like I really want to look into it more. 100%.
Well,
Yeah.
there is a podcast which has got 8 episodes
Mhm.
on it, which again you can find Monster with 21 Faces. Much deeper dive than this. I deliberately haven't listened to all of that. I am going to after this, but I didn't want to that cloud what I was going to say
Yeah.
in this episode too much. But it's very well researched.
Mhm.
I would direct
Well,
everyone
I'm
towards it.
definitely gonna.
They also have a data bank of all of the clues, TV
Yes.
footage, everything
Great.
like that. But the obvious barrier is the Japanese language. So
That unfortunately, but it's really interesting. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this.
no, I mean, I'm really interested in everyone's theories
Mhm.
out there. I throw out a few of the main ones. There's various others, but I just can't remember any case like this where there was no motivation seemingly.
Mhm.
Like it's just, I think that's the thing. But I do have to say it's also quite a I don't know. I just it well the thing that goes round and round in my head is just what did they want? Did they really just want money, as the repeated demand said, or is that just were they playing up to a stereotype because they never once picked anything up, they never once did anything, even during the first kidnapping they said it's not about money.
I think they maybe they just wanted to show that they could do it. Make the
Possibly.
cops bring cash, threaten, scare, control, but never really incriminate themselves by picking up the prize because they knew that they were smarter than that, you know? They had the radios.
But think about the skill set that you have to possess here. You not only have to be able to kidnap somebody or know people who can kidnap somebody on your behalf. We can't eliminate that. Um, you have to be able to, acquire cyanide. Not an easy thing. Definitely not an easy thing to do in Japan. It's an island nation. You have to have access to a police radio and know how to use it.
I mean,
You,
I managed to do that as a kid.
well, still, it's not. I'm just saying this is part of the skill set.
A police scanner is like not too hard to come by.
This is still part of it. This skill set that you have to
It's
have.
clever, but I think if you wanted to do that, you could come up with it.
But you also have to be able to gain access to buildings.
I think that's why I think
You
there was
know.
an inside man or woman.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes the most sense. Remember, I mean, presumably Glico had some sort of security cameras as well.
Yeah, with tapes that hadn't been changed in the last 25 years.
You know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah, it's wild. I think it's an inside man, or there's more to it than we think.
There's way more, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever know the story unless somebody leaves note on the deathbed explaining it all. It's the only way I see this coming out, because if they've stayed quiet since 1985, 39 years ago.
Are they even around? They might be.
That's right.
Might have cocked it already.
Yeah, if this person was middle aged, then they could very well not be anymore.
From the pic, it looks as though they were. Maybe he's going to bring his typewriter out,
maybe
blow off the dust, and type a "fuck you" and leave it on his deathbed.
Well, I mean, to be honest, we can only hope.
Yeah.
It's frustrating that there's nothing to this, but
I kind of like the not knowing in this case. It's one of those cases where I'm like, if they bring out a guy and go, "Oh, look, there he is. It was this guy," and he was a bit angry at the company, he'd be like, "Oh, right, yeah," like a brother who was cut out the inheritance or something. But like in this case, I think I like the mystery of the monster with the 21 faces.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Linz, for listening to this story today. And thank everyone for listening at home. If you have a theory, if you know any more, if there's any more evidence you'd like to talk about, or if you'd just like to chat about us making idiots of ourselves, then, make sure you post on the Instagram or the Patreon. We want to hear from you about this case. So
no weird shit.
Yeah, no weird shit. No monster with 21 faces letters, please.
Yeah, be nice, okay? Yeah. Don't be weird.
So thank you very much, and take care. Bye.
Bye.
All them humps in Arizona.
Well, Chris, gather some humpy fellas.
Yeehaw!
Humpy boy.
I'm going to expose myself. What you gonna do with all them humps in Arizona?
I'm gonna make you carry stuff through Arizona.
My hump.
My hump.
Blow 'em up. See meat.
Well.
See meat. See meat.
Ooh.
See meat.
Can't wait. That's gigantic. Especially Septembrio.
It's huge. What's he got on there?
One big, massive
meat.
I don't know where you think this is going.
I'm going to expose myself. What you going to do with all them humps in Arizona?
I'm going to make you carry stuff through Arizona.
My hump.
My hump.
My humps.
My hump.
Blow 'em up.
Both the single and the double humpers.
There's one hump and two humps.
The one hump and two humps. There was some humping. The ultimate hump. Who gets to mate with the female?
Greasy self up. Oh. Greasy self up. Greasy self up. Greasy self up.
Greased up in Speedos. Dicks.
Wow.
Grease. Dicks. Grease. Dicks. Grease. Dicks. Grease. Dicks. Grease. Let's slap it.
Oh, no. What you gonna do with all them humps in Arizona?
I'm gonna make you carry stuff through Arizona.
What you gonna do with all them humps in Arizona?
I'm gonna make you carry stuff through Arizona.
What you gonna do with all them humps in Arizona?
I'm gonna make you carry stuff through Arizona.
My hump.
My hump.
My humps.
My hump. And we're British.